Hey, folks, welcome back to the Pulse. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat, and you need some hope. Am I right or am I right? You need some hope. You need a reminder because if you've been paying any attention to what's going on the Twitters, you would be very, very, very depressed right now. Welcome back. It is 2:22 Central Texas time, and I am very thankful and I would feel like I'm watching people devour themselves. And you know what? Every time I say that, I feel like, oh, this is the worst it's ever been. Well, this is the worst it's ever been. I mean, talk about the infighting. There's no unity. There's people defacing uh, WPLS. It's just so crazy what's going on out there. It's like, I think about it. If you've had kids, you know this is the case. It's like idle hands of the devil's workshop, right? Keep people busy. I remember when I was a kid, I got into trouble, like really big trouble. You know what I'm talking with my dad, and my dad worked nights, and so he'd get home around like 1:30 in the morning, and I got in really big trouble. And I knew my dad was going to wake me up in the middle of the night, because I went to school. And my dad worked nights, actually worked afternoons, and he literally, I woke up when my feet hit the floor, right? So like off the top bunk, and my dad said, "Hey, I hear you got in trouble." And I'm like, "Yes, sir." And so I went out in the middle of the night, and we had cobblestones in Michigan. And then, cobblestones are pulled out of the field because it's, glacial material. And he said, "You know what you're doing, son? You're moving those rocks from there over there." And boy, I spent the next hour or so, I'm like, I don't know, 13 years old, 12 years old. And I got done with it. And it was a lot of work because they're pretty heavy stones. And I said, "I'm done." He said, "You're going to move them back now." And folks, I'll tell you what, it's like, it feels a lot like that, right? You're just don't know what to do. So you do something. And I think there's a lot of people within our community who have ADHD. And so they just want to push buttons. They want to cause trouble. They want to pick fights and they want to create unrest. And there's not, that's DeFi for you, right? It's like take it into your own hands. There's not leadership. And of course, we know that without, vision, without the reminder of vision, and that's what Richard Hart provided so much when he was streaming. And I think it requires us to step up into that and to say, hey, we got to constantly remind ourselves. If you've ever been in leadership, you know that, especially if you've led a company and you have new people that are hired, they don't know the ethos unless you tell them. And so as a leader, you find yourself repeating over and over and over again the same things because the people that are coming in, new onboards, new employees, they don't know the story. And all of this stuff in life is knit together with a story. Your family, there's a story. Your name, right? It originates from the narrative. And the success that you have is a lot about determined by how well you tell that story. And how true it is, the conviction, all of those kind of things. And so that's what I'm going to do for you today in lieu of Richard Hart being here. But if you saw the thumbnail, I had Richard Hart skipping through the daisies. And so we'll be talking about Richard Hart, and I'm going to focus a lot on a perspective that I have, what's keeping me going. And a lot of people are really, really bummed out and they're expressing that online. And, you just have to get back to the basics and understand where we are because it's not just like, oh, it's just the Pulse chain that's down. No, all altcoins are, in the dumps. There's no one like, you see the blue chips doing a little bit better since last year, but ultimately there hasn't been an altcoin summer. And so let's get in the chat, say hello to you. Then I've got to share with you a couple things. And then hopefully you'll just be encouraged because that's the whole point of this, right? We don't give up because what does it provide when you're going through these challenging times? It builds endurance, right? There's a whole, if you understand how the world works and life works, you have to go through these difficult times. And just when you think it's can't get any worse, it does. It's how you deal with that stuff that makes the biggest difference. Sam Kemp is here. He says, as long as we're drawing a breath, there's hope. There's even hope after you draw the last one. And you know that as well as I do. Sam Kemp, good to see you here. Enoch is here. Here I go. And Finn Bear, what's up, man? It's so good to see you in. Francis Powell, Taryn, blessed day. Yes. I've been doing definitely low carb, and quite a bit of the carnivore. So appreciate your help there. From 10,000x to there is hope. Well, what's interesting is you have a choice to make, right? So if you want to be encouraged, be here. If you don't want to be encouraged, go on Twitter. And you may be on Twitter, but go see people fighting. And you may enjoy that. I mean, there's a lot of people that get a kick out of that. That's not why most people are here. D, Crypto Galaxy, no hope for this scam project. And Richard Hart, he wrecked me and all community, no future for PLS, PLSX, and Hex. That's the whole point, right? What do you do here? I mean, and that's the point of me doing this stream. Give up, sell it all, go to Solana, right? I mean, there are a lot of different ways you can make money. The reason that I'm in here and why I'm still doing this is not because of Hex 10,000X. I'm here because we're building the alternative financial system. You don't realize what's going on, folks. I mean, what is going on in the world is the authoritarians are on the rise. We know this. I mean, look what's happening. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, Trump's going to save us. Not so sure. I'm not so sure that folks are going to allow Trump to even live, much less be president. But folks, I tell you what, when all these other things, when you don't have the options, right? When things are regulated out of control, or you've got the mark, where are you going to be able to transact and speak freely? Where are you going to be able to, have privacy? And so as you build an alternative financial system right now, it seems foolish, right? The stone the builders rejected has become the capstone. And that's so true when you think in terms of what Richard's building. And he's been clear about that. And I'm going to make the point right now. Heck, why am I even waiting? Let's make this point. This was not the original point I was going to make, but for you, D Crypto Galaxy, who is really sad, here you go. Here you go. What's the point? Why are we doing this? Why is anyone in this Richard Hart ecosystem, right? Why would you be here? Like, to your point, there's no hope for this scam project. It's a scam project. He wrecked you and all the community, no future. Everybody's out. Well, I'm not, and I'm going to tell you why. But you can be. But that's the cool thing about choice. You can make it. But here's my point, and this is why I'm not giving up. The next exciting step in the SEC's lawsuit against the open source Hex, PulseChain and PulseX publishing code, and is the SEC's response to the motion to dismiss. It's due in just a few weeks, July 8th. So here's the thing. I think the SEC is going to dismiss. Why? Because I don't think they want Richard Hart setting the precedent of free speech, meaning code is speech. Then our response to their response is due a month after. Code is speech. Most people, I think, aren't smart enough to understand what he's saying there, to be completely honest with you. D Crypto Galaxy, you may be smart enough to understand this. But think about this. This isn't a matter of, oh, I like this meme coin, or I like this thing better than that, or I like Solana, or I like whatever. This is about the fundamentals of what does it mean when you pay, you open up your wallet, and you write to the blockchain. See, these are the things that are really crazy. Most people don't understand crypto. You do not have any tokens. You do not own crypto. Crypto is out on a public ledger, and you have keys to it. There's no possession of crypto, zero. And people don't realize that. And so that creates all these kind of really interesting legal things. Because if you think about it, what is actually happening when you pay the gas fee? You inscribe something onto, you do math, and you inscribe something onto the blockchain. When you really get down to the details of this, it is actually speech. You're publishing something. And that's something that the world really hasn't seen, and certainly the legal system hasn't really addressed. And that's what Richard is doing. And the time to do it is in the down. It's not like everyone else is up and we're down. No, we're just down a lot. And he's been missing in Leadership Matters and all of those things. But at the end of the day, you've got to relate to the fact that this has to be decided at some point or another. It has to be decided if code is speech. And if speech, then you have the right to speak freely. And so it's less about, because if you look at the case against Richard Hart, it's really about this fraud thing. And I love the response that the lawyers made, because of the timing of the sacrifice and when he spent his money. You look at this, they're trying to accuse him of fraud. And they're like, well, unless he has a time machine, these things aren't as relevant. So I think that, you have to kind of separate out these pieces. Is he going to be able to set this precedent that code is speech? If he is, it serves everyone within the community. But more importantly, what did he do? What did he do? I mean, folks, nobody wants to swim upstream, including Richard Hart. And so why in the world would you just put money into so people can dump on you? I mean, that's really what people are looking for, right? They want the price to go up so they can dump it because they need cash. And that's what's happening. Everyone's bleeding out. All the people that retired, all the OG Hexicans, all these people that need cash that don't have businesses or retired, and they don't have the additional capital, and they, quit working every single month. You see it in the charts. They've got to sell to be able to pay their rent. And it gets to a point where it all runs out. And you get to the point where it's down and it's down and it's down and it's down. And in a way, that is the beauty of the future, is that we can buy low. But the question is, what are you buying into, right? Richard made a comment on Twitter about how all of this, there's only so much money to go around in this bear market. We haven't seen any of the inflows of the Ethereum ETF stuff either, and that excitement, if you will. So I'm going to give you a couple points after I get through the chat. That was a bit of an aside. But to me, this battle is not over whether you get a 10,000x or whether you feel scammed or not. The point is that someone of some intellect has to represent us when it comes to setting precedents legally, that what is your pushing the button and writing to the blockchain? Is that something that can be regulated, or is that your inalienable right of free speech that's in the First Amendment or not? Because when you write something and you're an author, that's yours. When you write computer code, that's yours, unless otherwise specified. And so speech as code, that's what we need. Well, it'd be nice to have a legal precedent around. Rich Liberation, good to see you, Taryn. I don't use Twitter X. What has been happening? Oh, just people, basically people fighting over down charts, basically, and criticizing. And it's what's funny is, as soon as the things change, and we're going to talk about the banana zone next, the waiting is the hardest part. Tom Petty, absolutely. Dr. Giggles, Rich Liberation, smash the like button. Yeah, I appreciate that. Sold all my portfolio 10x minus for Caspa, the real decentralized blockchain. There you go. Why would you even be here? Why would you have Pulse in your logo, right? In your profile pic? I would say get that out, put Caspa up, and good luck to you. Seriously, you gotta choose a horse to ride. And this isn't for everyone, certainly, especially when you look at the chart, right? But why am I here right now? I'm here to remind you of really what's at stake, the big story. We are building the alternative financial system. And the problem is, it shouldn't be a surprise to you that things go down 85, 90%. They just do that. What are we hoping the future is that as things go digital, that we've got a place that we can actually transact freely. Richard Hart is not going to compromise his principles. And what are his principles? He's advocating for free speech. And you think about what this fight is for. This fight isn't for, well, I shouldn't have bought Louis Vuitton. It's not what it's about, folks. It's about the fundamentals of your ability to have control over your financial future as it relates to this new innovation called cryptocurrency, right? In a way, if you want to throw your money into a hole, you should be allowed to, right? You're allowed to jump out of an airplane and smoke cigarettes. You should be able to write to the blockchain. That's my opinion, but we'll see, right? But you know what? Whenever I see anyone that's belly aching about all their losses, they're over leveraged. They went in too much, or they got too excited about the gains from previously. But I'm going to make this case. I'm going to make it now. Richard Hart is used to winning, right? And he's paying attention to what's going on, and everybody's like, "Oh man, this sucks," and you're down, and you said this and that, and everybody's belly aching about PHEX versus EHEX and all of these things. What's the glory? What's the glory? The glory before was 10,000x, right? Being able to quote that. Well, that's not the case right now. So let me ask you this: Richard Hart, who I would say definitely billionaire, multiple times over, probably between his holdings of Wrapped Bitcoin and Ethereum, probably multiple times over billionaire. And that's not even including the SAC money. That's my guess. Somewhat educated. And so you think about this, all right, what matters? What matters to him? Well, what was his first love? His first love is Hex, right? Well, all of these people that are, hanging out waiting for the price to go up, I think are going to get squeezed out, right? It's going to keep going lower and lower. And there's going to be this point where you just give up, right? Just literally sold all my portfolio, go over to Caspa, right? Shake these people out. Because what's going to be amazing about this is, do you think Richard Hart could show his face in the future if Hex on the Pulse chain doesn't at least hit 52 cents? Just think about this for a second. Well, what do you want? You want the people that have a lot of supply to have very little supply. You want the people that are angry to go away. And you want the people that understand T-shares and understand Richard Hart and understand the dynamics of what he's doing to be the true believers, right? Because what we're fighting for isn't purely, I want my meme coin to go up. And strangely, and I don't want to be critical of people, but I used to be a really big fan of your friend Somi, and I like the guy's funny and all that kind of stuff. But this promotion of this era of every different coin under the sun, right? And he's been, relatively supportive of the Pulse chain, but it's everything, right? It's chasing all of these things that I think is a challenge, because if you think about the real purpose of forking Ethereum, if you think about what the purpose of fighting the SEC, I think Richard had all this stuff planned previously. Right now, we're just treading water. We're launching tokens, and sniper bots are getting them, and people are rug pulling, and people are getting upset, and everybody's chasing this, that, and the other. A lot of these things, just look back about 6 months and tell me what each month was the theme of the month, right? Remember when Titan X was big, right? Who's talking about that, right? There's a lot of things that come and go. But if you think about this, that's why leadership matters and what we're fighting for matters. And that's why I'm here reminding you of what the whole point of this is. The whole point of this is it's got to have some kind of utility. Well, and I don't mean utility in the sense of, file sharing. What I mean, the utility of it is literally, Richard Hart, the utility of X, you know what it is? It's not you getting rich. The utility of this is the mechanism by which we have an alternative financial system, and we actually get some sort of precedent that you writing to the blockchain is speech, because the glory is not going to come from just you getting rich. The glory for Richard Hart is actually going to be fighting the system and actually winning, because our made up internet money is better than the government's made up internet money. Well, what are we doing? This is actually the cause of freedom and independence and sovereignty for you. The battle is way bigger than you think it is. And the question is this: pick somebody else. Who else is fighting for you? Who else is doing it? Who else actually has a case that could determine that your writing to the blockchain is speech? I don't see anybody else. So, folks, you have to pick a horse to ride. And if this isn't the horse for you to ride, go away. It's okay. It really is okay. Because the economic energy that was put in by the sacrificers and the leadership and the wealth of Richard Hart and the desire to have the glory is the right combination of factors when the momentum shifts. Is that momentum shift going to come here in July when the ETF money comes in and we're going to see an altcoin summer? Is it going to be, right now it's kind of meme coin land and people are just chasing stuff, right? You're hoping to get lucky, but it's hard to pick from 1,000 different things. So with that, let me show you this. This is, I shared this on Twitter a while back, but I want you to see this. And I feel like this is like the overarching macro thing that you need to be aware of. All right. So this is Raoul Pal. And I share this. It's funny. Even Raoul gets it wrong, right? All right, here we go. So he said this was going to happen in 2 weeks, and this was back the 15th of May, right? This was a month ago, and we're still not there. But listen to this.
This is the banana zone. Why it's called the banana zone is because the chart A looks like a banana and B, everything goes bananas.
Okay, so I'm going to stop this for a second. Look at this chart. What is this chart? It's a post-halvening chart, right? And it's the 4 cycles, right? These are the first 3 cycles post-halvening. And what did it look like, right? The first one went to 100. The second one went to 5,000. The third one went to 60,000. And this is Bitcoin, right? And here we are. What it generally does, Raul's going to explain.
And that comes after the halving, after this consolidation, it does this. Will it be identical? Is 300 grand the price target? Whatever. I don't know, but it will go bananas.
Okay, so I'm going to stop here. What is Richard Hart's call for the top? He's already called it 241,500. Well, look at this chart. This is just a random chart from Raoul Pal. They're not buddies. They're not communicating. And what is he seeing? He's just using basic math from the past. This is showing this top, if you will, at 300,000. Is it going to be that? I don't know. But what is Richard Hart's call? Well, if everything kind of goes and rhymes, it's about, for him, 241.5. I think he's actually sandbagging a bit off the $300,000 Bitcoin number. Well, what does that mean for the rest of the marketplace? Where are we in this story? What's interesting about this is the last time that pretty much everybody has memory is the last bull run. Well, the last bull run had massive amounts of really, really cheap money in the market. We don't have that, right? We got high interest rates. I mean, people are struggling everywhere. We've got inflation going crazy. We've got all kinds of wars and rumors of wars. And so it is going to be different. But will it rhyme? Yes, because this money's got to go somewhere, folks. I don't know if you know this, but people have to deploy capital. It has to flow. So where are the yields going to be and where are people going to go? Now, imagine where we are in this story and imagine what's going on with Richard Hart. What if this SEC thing actually goes and then we actually have the opportunity for a judge to look at you writing the blockchain as speech? Because if you have a fair, if you literally have a fair look at what is the function of connecting your wallet, paying the gas fee, you're doing the work, and you're writing or inscribing to the blockchain, and you understand that you don't hold any crypto, right? You don't have cryptocurrency in a wallet. You have the keys to what is written. You have the rights to it essentially because you have the key. You don't have possession. And that's what's so interesting about this is that if we can establish this, or he can establish this as speech, it's one of the greatest wins of all time. I mean, he will literally go down in history. I think this is actually where the glory is. Now, what does that mean for the price? Well, more buyers than sellers, folks. And what do people like buying? Green candles. But the momentum's not here. And in the case for this is this. He went and put in that 170,000 and moved some of that SAC money into Ethereum, right? And everybody's like, oh, you bought the top, you suck, right? Richard's never said he is, he doesn't have a crystal ball. But what's amazing about it is he's shown his hand and shown what he's willing to do. And you think about, decentralized yield like Spark, and you think about, all right, what's he going to do with that ETH? And then, he probably thought, hey, we're about to rip, but it didn't rip. Okay. So where are we in this cycle? Well, folks, this is what's happened in the past. Is it going to rhyme? Question is, can you wait? Can you actually weather this storm or not?
I do an enormous amount of work. There's literally thousands of pages of research from Julian Bittle and myself on this. So this is not just some flippant comments. We see liquidity rising going forwards. There's sources of liquidity everywhere, but the cowbell is coming. Listen out for it. It's already started. So the banana zone is all cowbell and markets going parabolic.
Real Vision founder and...
All right. I think that's important to note, right? Do I know when it's going to happen? No. But I want to remind you of what we're doing here. If you're in the Pulse chain and you don't realize that this is a play on freedom and sovereignty, you're in the wrong place. I mean, literally go to Base, go to Solana, go somewhere else. If all you're here for is just for the money, this is not the place. It's clearly not the place. If you're here for the long-term strategic, having a alternative financial system that literally isn't compromised, that you have the freedom, and provided they don't take down the internet or we have Starlink, we're going to have a place that's not OFAC compliant, that doesn't, partner with MasterCard, but it's going to be a slower burn than everything else. I mean, this is not popular. It's not easy to get in. I was onboarding a guy a couple days ago, and it was a lot. I mean, he didn't understand the first thing about it. And he's like, well, what do I do? How do I go from my Coinbase wallet all the way through the bridge to be able to buy? Whether you're using, you could use Coast, I suppose. But the point is, it's like, that was the way he wanted to get in. And it was complicated and very complicated for him to understand. And so we're still in this weird space. It still is kind of an early thing if it's that difficult to get into. But I'm much more concerned about the long term of not having to have the mark, if you will, to buy and sell. And that's a whole other discussion that we could talk about in a second. All right, let's see who we got. I remember being awakened in the middle of the night to do manual labor as a result of trouble. Builds character. Hey, it certainly did. But you know what? Some people, my dad never whooped us, right? He never he never took out his anger on us. He said there's consequences to your decisions. And I think it was really healthy. And you know what? I sweat in the middle of the night and had to do that work. And I didn't do that again. Yeah, it is. Parenting is a little bit different when you've got boomer parents, I suppose. Thanks for taking the time the other day, Matt. Gave me tons to think about. Again, this world is changing dramatically. Finbear and I spent some time privately just talking about things like energy, talking about, think about this. Everything's changing. AI's impact, Obviously, money's changing. It's crazy. But that's the exciting part too, is that, you know, I'm always gonna go the path of advocating for independence, freedom, sovereignty, your inalienable rights that are given to you by a creator, not, government. And, I think there's a lot of people that agree with that. And so a lot of this noise is going to go away and a lot of this infighting is going to go away. But a lot of these tokens that have kind of been built up in this era are going to go away too, right? If you don't have something that's tied to something significant, right? And people could criticize text in that way too. But you know what? What's it tied to? Well, could birth and be a part of a new nation. And the way things are going in America, we need Texas more than we've ever needed it before. Daniel, good to see you. Diamond Hands, Enoch says, Cookie Dish, Shakalaka. Hello, everybody. Great to see you all. Hope you're doing fine. Jay Pons here. The Lions will not eat me. Hex Rockstar, good to see you. Time Travelers here. You know what's so great about the kind of the OGs of OGs and Hexagon? I got in 2 days before Big Payday, so I'm not an OG Hexagon, and I didn't put much in. But I have a lot of respect for those people who actually saw the vision that Richard had. I really do. Because, when I think about what's important to Richard in his temperament and what he's doing, he cares about the things that no one cared about. When he first did the sacrifice for PLS and it was about freedom of speech, I think people were looking around like, what are you talking about? This was before the whole thing in Canada, right? When they were freezing people's accounts because they were buying a sandwich for someone. This was before the whole thing in the Netherlands with the farmers. And then look where it's gone, right? Look at the ridiculousness of this, empire and this war machine. And it's like, well, what's next, right? They're coming after your ability to transact because they want to control it all. That's the whole CBDC thing. That's the whole, social credit score and digital ID. That's where it is going. And so how crazy and how great would it be that there would be an alternative? I mean, just think about this on a macro scale. This is what the BRICS nations are doing. They don't like, U.S. hegemony. And so they're literally saying, hey, we might want to get together and back something with real assets and actually build an alternative system. Well, they're doing one that's going to also be extractive in nature, right? That's an extraction model. It's an alternative to SWIFT and all of that. But they're already doing it. So half of the GDP of the world is going to be in BRICS. The other half is going to be in the US dollar. And it's going to be this battle financially, if not nuclear. And that's the crazy part about it. The business of war. Wouldn't it be nice to have a place where we can transact? And that's the thing that Richard is advocating for. And I think it probably makes him sick when he sees people fighting over this coin or that coin or belly aching about, but you know what? Honestly, if I were a betting man and I were to look at what Richard cares about, I think P-Hex is really important to him. I really do, right? He said, I built this for Hex. So I think that the people, I remember saying, back when Hex was probably 15 cents, I was thinking, man, could you imagine buying Hex at a penny? I remember saying that. It's well below a penny now. And I think about all these people being shaken out and all these people who have had to go get jobs and all of this stuff that's been sold in the market. And you go to goldpulse.com and you see negative, every single day, just like I have. And you go, okay, it's not the right time yet. And, once the prevailing wind shifts, what's going to end up happening? All this money's going to start pouring in, and Richard's going to be strategic with the placement of his resources. But I think the important thing is he doesn't want to have, let's say he wins this case, and the ideal scenario is there's a precedent set that writing to the blockchain is speech. Okay. He's going to go around and he's going to take victory lap after victory lap. Do you think he wants to take victory laps with Hex being at half a penny? Nope. I think that's table stakes for somebody that's going to be taking the credit for this big precedent that he's setting. And so when I think about this, does he care about PulseX, Inc.? Yeah, well, they're liquidity bonded. So I think these things move up together. And then think about all the people that are building. The things that we're doing in the background and getting prepared for that we're going to be doing on the Pulse chain is incredible stuff. It's big money. And then I think about all these other builders out there who understand and believe this. It's like we need to unify, right? And we need to keep building. And there are legitimate people in this Pulse chain, but in a way, I kind of hope that the people that are just here for whatever meme it is, whatever inappropriate meme it is. And that's one thing that drives me crazy is like, well, go somewhere else. Go somewhere else. Because at the end of the day, it's going to, rising tide's going to lift all the boats. And I think about most of the people that I see launching meme coins don't have any capital. They don't have any liquidity. Where's the liquidity sitting? And that's when you're just like, we will see. But I'm not here just for the price of Hex or the price of these things, because I understand where we are in the timing, and I understand what Richard cares about. He frankly cares about you, which is odd. He shouldn't, honestly, with the way people treat him. But you know what? He's the guy with the resources. He's the guy with the vision. He's the guy that's got a chance to set the precedent. So this is the horse I'm going to ride. Magnus, what's going on? I'm so eager to see the new decentralized money ecosystem to flourish. I know this can change the world. Well, I mean, it is a fundamental building block of that. One of the things that I think is missing, to be honest with you, from this really crypto industry, but DeFi especially, is it doesn't have a lot of locked liquidity. And, there's not a lot of confidence that somebody with big money, one, that it's backed by anything, has any real kind of long-term utility, and they can get out if they get in. That's a big issue for a lot of people. What's it backed by? And if I get in, can I get out? Is this liquidity? Am I sure that I'm going to be able to get out if I get in? But that's the nature. That's why I think we're early, is because it is the Wild West still. And we don't have these, regulatory clarity. But folks, what did Donald Trump say recently? He used to call crypto a scam. And he's like, I'm the crypto president. He is pandering to those in crypto. But at least he's pandering. At least he's commenting about this. There's some I don't know, some gossip out there that this DJT meme coin, actually, he might be behind. I don't know. I'm not on Solana. Anyway, the point is, you've got to understand what this thing is about. This is not just, hey, blockchain, just number go up. Do I think the number will go up? Yes, I do. But I think what we're fighting for is way more consequential. And that's the thing, that's why I said at the beginning, the stone the builders rejected has become the capstone. Okay. What does that mean? You're building an archway, you're building a building, and you're literally choosing stones, right? And this one's odd. This one's an odd shaped stone, and it doesn't fit. And you reject it and reject it and reject it and reject it. And you build it higher and higher and higher and harder. And what ends up happening? You end up using that stone at the top. That's what's happening here. That's how I see it. You might not see it that way. That's fine. But I look at the cycles of all of these things and I go, where are you going to find the yield? Right? And where are you going to go when this whole thing collapses? Because this whole US dollar thing, I mean, just imagine when the BRICS groups get their act together. They're going to wage an economic war. And I think we don't want to be denominated in dollars. So it's going to be really interesting where the Pulse chain fits into all of this stuff. If it's one, properly decentralized, which I believe it is. And two, that it's got, the true tenets of DeFi built in, immutability, self-custody, all of those things. And those are the things that Richard's preached. So do I think Richard will be back? Yes, I do. But it's going to be after the SEC case gets let go, or he takes it to the House, because I think that's really what he's hoping with this team of a massive amount of the best lawyers in the world, is he wants to take him to the mat. He wants to take the SEC to the mat to get that decision, which is your writing to the blockchain, your code is speech. And that's a protected right you have. And boy, I'll tell you what, that's the glory, folks. That's the glory. And the question is, did he know this the whole time? That's what makes me go, wow, he's smarter than the rest of us. What's up, Firestarter? Good to see you, buddy. What are you doing awake? That's what I want to know. Let's see what happens. 8th of July, how much are you willing to bet? Well, there's a lot of people that think that's when we're going to see a lot of these inflows from the Ethereum ETF. Does that kick things off? Maybe. I think what's going to be also interesting about this is all this stuff related to the election, right? All of these things related to the election. Is it July 8th or 11th when Trump gets basically put in Rikers? I mean, dude, the amount of tension that's built up right now, I mean, we're going to see unrest upon unrest upon unrest. Is it a civil war? I don't know if it's a civil war, because it's hard to know who to shoot. right? The battle lines aren't as clear, but the sentiment is there. The thing that's crazy to me is, could you imagine if Trump passes away before he is president again? That's what I mean. If I had to put my money down, that's what I would bet they're planning. You imagine you're somebody like former CIA, former FBI, all the people that worked against him, all the people that signed the Russian collusion stuff, Clapper, Brennan, all those guys. Can you imagine all the deep state people? You know, he had one go around where he was like, well, I'm just feeling this thing out. He has the list. He knows he's coming after you. And if you're the same people that took down Kennedy, Trump's easy. That's the kind of thing I'm concerned about, is that it's all in the plans. And you're like, oh, I'm building all my hope on Trump, just like Richard Hart. And you're just like, well, what if he's out of the game? I mean, that's the thing that Tucker Carlson's asked so many times. I mean, I would be very fearful because you underestimate. You think, oh, politically, I've got this. I've got all these people. And we think, oh, yeah, it's about voting. Well, clearly it's not about voting. They've seen that the Dominion machines that they said were, rock solid, flip the votes. I mean, folks, this is really consequential times we fit into. And so right now you're like, well, is it Solana or, is it Pulse Chain or is it Ethereum? And that's really the choice you have. That's kind of a luxury right now. You're going to get to the point where it's like there's one choice because everything else you're locked out of. That's the beauty of open source. In this whole IPFS thing, when you're like, man, why do I have to click an extra button and run something locally? Because you're not going to be able to run it on any hosted solutions, because the hosted solutions it's going to be banned. Possibly. You got to understand. I mean, these people are like, there's no distance too far for them. It's obvious. And they overplay their hand. It's going to get worse before it gets better. But the longer that it's bad, the more the tension builds up. And at the end of the day, what is money? Money's a proxy for your labor, and it has to flow. It just has to flow. We're talking to some folks who have to deploy hundreds of millions of dollars every quarter. And it's like that's their requirement, their mandate. If they don't get it done by October 1st, they have to have all of that capital deployed by October 1st. You think about it, folks, most of the people that are in the Pulse Chain and crypto have no clue how institutional money works. They've never had real money. They don't know and understand that, in the background, it has to flow. It has to go somewhere. And so people chase yield all the time. And that's why U.S. securities are still propped up so much, is because there's nowhere else in the world to go to get yield. We've basically outsourced all of this inflation. And it's like, what is it doing? It's driving everybody into our country. Folks, I think the only hope really is to build an alternative financial system. Will America get saved in this process through this next election? I don't think it's fixable. Could we maybe kick the can down the road a little bit? Yeah. But I do think that one of the actual solutions to this is an independent Texas. But that's my opinion. Excited? What's going on? BTFD. Hey. It is in the word meme coin. Yeah, me. That's really good. We're here for some other reason. Yeah, this idea that what a great reference, Daniel. This idea that it's all about me, and that's a really good point. You think about what really makes community work, what makes life work, what makes your family work, it's considering others in addition to yourself. How do you win? If Richard was just out to get rich himself, he'd be gone. He's already rich. So he's advocating for you and me. I mean, really, what's he trying to prove? Well, he's trying to make a difference in the world. It's obvious, because if it's just about the money and it was you'd be gone with your Lambo on a beach somewhere, right? And I think a lot of people, that's all they see. They just see, well, I want to get this amount of money. It's funny. I was watching $1 million is not enough money. You got to think about all these things. Yeah. Well, you got to think about like the future for your grandkids. Are they going to be in a place where they've actually got the ability to move, to speak, to transact, to associate? I mean, these are really fundamental things. And that whole, idea of America, or this idea of freedom, we're realizing it. The paint's chipping off this thing. It's not actually very fundamentally sound. And it used to be that you thought that there were people that actually, you know, had your best interest in mind, and those people are gone. They're not around. They're certainly not in government. And so when you see somebody like Richard, he's like, "Hey, I know you want me to take all my money and basically hand it to you. That's not how this thing works. We have to have the momentum of the market shift so that it draws in." This is like, have you ever tried to prime a pump or siphon gas back in the 70s? I know that Sam Kemp never had to siphon gas. My dad siphoned gas all the time from one car to the other. Think about that. In the late 70s, early 80s, when we were under this kind of waiting in line for gas, he would literally sometimes have to siphon out of one car to put into another. And in order to do that, he would suck on it. I remember my dad, and he'd have to put out his cigarette before he siphoned the gas. And you have to get it going. And sometimes that gas would kick him right in the mouth, and you'd have to spit out some gasoline to be able to fill up that container. It's the same thing, right? If Richard did what everybody wants him to do, he'd just put in the liquidity and you just eat it up. So you have to wait for the market to shift, and then you've got to, carefully and selectively and strategically be able to place that under thin liquidity to see this thing rocket to the moon. That's what we've seen in the past, but it's much more a strategy than it is by accident. And most people just think, "Oh, I want mine now. It's about me, 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 me." Daniel's right. Timothy Harris, what's going on? Hello, everybody. Time traveler. It's not cool. Richard Hart will be rewarding the non-believers who just come into Pulse Chain because of the ETF rotation. You know what? Sometimes you get lucky, right? Sometimes you don't know. I mean, I got lucky this last time. I saw a TV ad. That's what it was. It was a late night TV ad for X. Did I win? Yeah, I won in that. Was it a lot? No, but I won. There will be people who benefit. But you know what? I think what's amazing is, why aren't we coming together talking about an alternative financial system rather than dick with butt? And I really mean that, right? Look at what we name things in the Pulse Chain. And I don't mean everybody, but just go through the list of inappropriate names for things. If you name something inappropriately, guess what? You've already defined the audience. Serious people are not going to use things that are related to, genitalia. That's why I was not a big fan of all of the outrage marketing stuff and talking about your pee-pee. Serious people, they discard that stuff, even if that's where there's big gains. They go somewhere else. It's like, no, this is serious. This is business. This is money. Treat it as such. So if you want to play with poor, broke people, name your stuff ridiculous things, and you'll play with broke people until it's over. It is the truth, and I'm telling you the truth. Real, legitimate people, they have no tolerance for that stuff. And you know what I'm talking about. Liberty or death, most things will go up in the bull market over the next year. So it's good to be diversified, but we must remember that will bring change that secures our freedom and liberty versus the rising tyranny. Let's hope so. That's what I'm hoping. When it comes to diversification, when I think about what Richard cares about, there's enough people that have been educated about T-shares and HEX and trustless yield. And I think that because he cares about it and he's got the resources, I think in order for him to take the victory lap, if in fact he gets this precedent set for writing to the blockchain being speech, we're going to have to see HEX above 52 cents again. I think we're going to have to see an all-time high in HEX. I don't think it's hard to get there. But in a way, you want all the people that are just itching to sell out. Sell now. Please sell now. If you've got HEX and you need cash, sell, 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 sell. That's the best thing that could possibly happen, because he cares about it. This is his first love. That's his baby, is HEX. And it's PHEX. It's not EHEX. And yeah, liquidity bonding and all those kind of things, a rising tide will lift all boats, and that's good. But I think that the things that are really going to win, if you will, are the things that have intentional strategic use of liquidity behind them, period. Umberto, what's up, man? Blessings to you, my friend. Liberty or death. Blockchain is a revolution, and whatever is built to give freedom and liberty will last and change the world for the betterment of all people. BTC was created for the purposes, and so yeah, look at it. You're absolutely right. I think we even forget this whole cypherpunk movement of what kind of created Bitcoin and when it launched and how it launched. Now there's a whole group of people like, well, the CIA invented it to keep track of you anyway. But you know what? That's that whole libertarian, utopia kind of concept. It's kind of a oxymoron. But this idea that you actually can have the freedom to be able to transact and to see what's happened and what's at stake, and the SEC taking all of these losses, and Trump shifting over to being crypto president and wanting to bring things. He wants Bitcoin to be mined in the United States. Great. That's encouraging but I'll tell you what, if Trump lives through the election and is the next president, we're going to see a massive landslide. I was watching something on X. It was a clip from, I think, CNN or something, where they were talking about African American voters, and they showed the percentage of African American voters that voted last time in the election for Trump, and it's like 7% or something like that. And now it's polling at 21%, and they're like, "This is unbelievable! It's shocking." No, people aren't stupid. That's it. At the end of the day, people are not stupid. Ramon Carrillo, what's up? OBX. Crypto Heartbeat, you're a breath of fresh air after hearing the chaos for the last few months. You're a blessing to listen to. Thanks for helping us ground it. Well, for those who have ears to hear, I suppose. I mean, I'm just one person, but I know that it's true because I think about this all the time, and I know what we're working on. There are fundamental, you just have to pay attention to understand what's missing. But so many people are just chasing when Lambo. And I think that comes with age. And I mean, think about this. My daughter's going to be going to college, right? Which is amazing. I've got a 16-year-old daughter, 18, and a son who is 13. And I'm thinking, time has flown by so fast. I'm thinking about, well, my girls are going to have kids. And it's going to be like, I want to be, pops. And what happens when kids come home? What do you want the future to look like for them? I joked with my kids. I said, likely when you've got kids that are your age, literally you'll come to Lolly and Pop's house and you will not drive your car. It'll drive for you. I mean, you think about that. It sounds silly, but it's true. And when you think about the things that are going to change, what's it going to look like, right? I mean, likely you will have a robot in your home that does everything for you. I mean, it's the Jetsons. I appreciate that comment. Thank you. Alexander, what's going on? Hit the like button, guys. Appreciate that. Mega. And what's funny about this is, from a political perspective, I appreciate the fact that there are people that are white hot over MAGA. But you know what? It's so true. It was true back in the day with Richard Hart, and it's the same thing with Trump. We don't worship a man, right? They're not gods. They're men. But I appreciate anybody who is going to fight for, at least, we're hoping that somebody is genuinely concerned about other people instead of just themselves. And I think that's the problem with politics, and I think that was the problem too with a lot of the narrative from Richard Hart with all the outrage marketing. Is it was him basically saying, I am God. You're not God, obviously, but you are a great advocate for the people, and you're smarter than everybody else, and you're actually fighting for people's the betterment of people. And you understand that what's under attack is the freedom to have private transactions, the freedom to speak, the freedom to associate and move, the freedom to transact. And those are fundamental things. Would it be nice to have really smart people with a lot of money fighting for that? Well, heck yeah, because I'm not that guy. So I'm glad there's somebody out there. So what do I want to do? I want to get on here and say, hey, thank you, Richard Hart, for what you're doing. Right? Everybody's got gifts. So the body has many parts. And so we have to fulfill the purpose for which we're here on this planet. BRICS are dumping the dollar. Saudis did not resign. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they didn't re-sign the 50-year petrodollar contract. The Russians have sent nuclear warships to Cuba to protect the Saudi. 63 U.S. banks on the verge of collapse. We need an alternative. Amen, dude. That's well said. Yeah, like do you really have to read the tea leaves for that one? No. Yeah. I was thinking about this. Like, it's gotten to the point now where I look at PHAX and I'm like, It looks really yummy. I mean, it's amazing what you can pick up. And if you think about this, if you were just like, well, maybe it'll just rise with the market, but you got to realize, Hex is a masterpiece, and the guy that birthed it cares a lot about it. And then, of course, the liquidity bonding. I mean, think about this. This is the other thing people don't realize. I remember back in the bull run, and he's like, I'm going to fork Ethereum. I didn't realize what the system state really meant. But then when you think about PDI and when you think about the maker contract and what he did with that at the very beginning, I mean, folks, the mastermind strategy behind this is incredible. Is it going to be happening on your timeline? Well, obviously not, because your timeline, we would have been at all-time highs. So you got to just go with the flow. You got to figure it out, create value. You got to get a job, got to make money. But the cool thing about this is you're on the front end. You know how to use a MetaMask wallet. You're not somebody that's just getting onboarded. And that's the beauty of it. But you know what's funny? The long-term benefit of the Pulse chain, because at the end of the day, as long as it remains the crypto casino, it's still just abstracted theft. I mean, if you really boil this down, what is it? I want to DCA and buy a lot low, and then I want to exit at the top. Well, what are you exiting into? Newbie people that don't understand the cycles. So you're okay with it because you're stealing from somebody who's just dumb, and you're like, well, I don't really know them. They're nameless, they're faceless, but it's stealing. But that's what the speculative nature of it is. We've got to get to the point where this is backed by something real, right? And we actually have real money coming in from something that is creating value. And I think that that's what we're going to see in this next future of crypto. It's going to get attached to all these sources of revenue. And I'll give you a really good example, or a simple example. Let's say me and Liberty Gated Death, hey, you and me start a concrete company in Texas. This is just a fictitious story. But we decide we're going to create a concrete business. And we know that a lot of people need concrete, and there's a certain profit margin on concrete. But we decide we're going to build this thing. It's going to be big. Okay, we get a capital, we do it, and we say, let's take a quarter of our profits or half of our profits, and let's buy the rock token. We're going to create a rock token, and every single month, we're going to buy that rock token with the money that comes from the profit of our concrete business. This is a simple example of what I think is going to end up happening. Is that what we're going to see is that people are going to tie crypto to actually value producing things. And what does that do? So you could have made X of 100% of your profits from the concrete plant, right? It creates real value, it lays concrete, and you make money. It has margin, right? But you decided that you were going to create alongside of it a rock token. And that rock token represents 50% of the profits of that company. You forego the short-term profits because you're regional. But what ends up happening is people see that this thing's got constant buying in it. And they start saying, well, other things don't have a source, right? They just have to convince another person. That's a Ponzi scheme, right? That's the idea that we just need more people to come in and buy. The future, in my opinion, of all of this is going to be built into how people do business, because essentially what you're doing is when you're tying an industry, let's say the concrete business, and it's a very simple example. It could be done with anything. And that is, correlated or connected to crypto. You have this understanding that, okay, this thing's going to kind of constantly be bought up. Well, if you didn't do some sacrifice and gave a bunch of people a bunch of token, they have to market buy. I want exposure to this growth. And I believe that this narrative works because it's actually built on something that creates real revenue. And you're like, hold on a second. That's where I think this is going. That's real value, right? You're not stealing from somebody that was dumb at the top. You're actually benefiting from people being siphoned in around a narrative story that is actually built on value creation. Checks my pulse, team. Richard Hart. What's up, y'all? Richard Hart is going to take over the whole crypto world. He's going to influence it. Will he take it over? No, because people won't let him take it over. The people that are out on Richard Hart don't like his personality. And frankly, Richard Hart is arrogant. And, even if it is humble, Richard, the fact of the matter, he's doing something for people. And, probably the people he would want to get a thank you from will never thank him, but we will. And I'm just glad we've got an advocate on our side. I've said it for a long time. Short-term pain for long-term gain. Hold on. all in, TradFi, it takes 30 years plus of investing to make barely enough to retire, and many in crypto can't hold on for a few years. They will find out the hard way. And then there's so many people, I remember talking to Ramon Carrillo, and he was talking about so many people. And I think, let's say you're a retirement age today. Let's say you're like 65. Do you know how many poor 65-year-olds there are that have zero savings and are having to work 2 jobs? And they're literally, they want to like enjoy their life. And, inflation is basically eating it all up, and they can barely, like, they have to decide between medicine and food kind of thing. Pensioners in like Europe would be a good example. It's squeezing those people. And it's like, well, what do you do? We got to have another alternative to this, right? And I think that that's what's so cool about the hope that is in crypto. You start tying that to real value, and you've got something really special. But here's the thing. I could see the regulators very easily, once things convert over, right? When the governments that are working together say, all right, we're converting to the digital dollar, and you got to have the government wallet, and you can't self-custody. Think about that. I think it's a very practical thing. All right, everybody, we've made this agreement, right? All of the Western countries are like, yep, we're going to do this deal, and we're going with the CBDC, and then there's a tandem agreement that these things are universally transferable. And we got ourselves a digital dollar. Well, they're going to be like, well, it's to your benefit to have the wallet, because the next time there's a pandemic and we want to hand out money like we did last time, we're not going to send it to your bank account in direct deposit. We're going to send it to your crypto wallet. Oh, in order to have your crypto wallet, we have to know you have to be fully KYC'd. So if you understand that very natural future with the digitization of money, where is there an alternative where you don't have to be KYC? You can self-custody, and you don't have to have a digital ID. And are there enough people within this ecosystem that we can start trading? Then marketplaces pop up. I remember when I was in college, there was a guy, he changed his name to .com guy. And if you're old school like me, you would have remembered this. And this was before live streaming, before YouTube and all this stuff. This was around the 2000 era, 99, 2000. And he would live stream himself. His last name was Maddox. He's from North Texas. And he wanted to see if he could live for a year in his apartment without leaving, just through the internet. And this was during the .com era. It was really difficult. There wasn't like Uber Eats, right? There's something called Peapod, I think, when they would deliver your groceries at the time. But it was very difficult for him to do that. But he was proving the fact that the internet's going to change everything. Well, think about this. Let's say, digital ID, social credit score, and, in order for you to benefit from the handouts from the government, you have to be basically in their system. I mean, this is kind of what China is doing right now. Or not, right? Well, how am I going to get my stuff, right? How am I going to transact? Well, I have to have a place that isn't going to block my accounts. Well, what is OFAC compliant? Well, you're like, well, that's for people who are terrorists and people who money launder. No, that's the model for clamping down on you. The pulse chain's not going to be like that. It will be properly decentralized, and Richard Hart and those that are in control of it it's not hosted on AWS. Government can't say, well, shut down that server. No, it's properly decentralized. So if you can keep those tenets of true DeFi, and everybody else in the world is saying, and you go, they sold it to me as a benefit. Hey, does that sound familiar? Hey, get these shots. It's a benefit to you. You won't spread this stuff. It's good. It's good for you. Oh, well, it wasn't. It's the same thing. They're going to sell it as this utopia, and everybody that's stupid is going to be like, yeah, I'll take it. That's great. And then, the next organized pandemic comes, and you go, well, we have to hand out the money. That's how you gain control. Oh, and in order for you to get the money, you need to, you basically need to bring and dispose of your guns. We know that you bought those guns because we got the registry set up, and AI has been reading that, and you're not able to get verified for your handout of stimulus that's in your government wallet unless you turn in your guns or whatever it is. But it's easy to do once you have that technology. So where are you going to go? Right now, you're like, well, it's Solana, or it's like a dick with a butt. I mean, it's ridiculous. Not thinking ahead like a couple steps. You have to have a place. So what'll end up happening is marketplaces are going to pop up like crazy within the pulse chain, because people are going to be like, what do you have? I've got this, you've got that. It's like the Old West. I've got some extra corn, and you've got a You've got a cow. I mean, look, we potentially will have to literally, people that are actually creating value outside of crypto instead of just chasing charts are going to literally say, hey, everything else, well, we can build our own system where we can transact and we can actually do really well within our own ecosystem because we have to, because the alternative is literally suffocating us. If you don't think this stuff's possible, you're not paying attention. It is happening right now. And so what's the benefit of the pulse chain? Well, I don't like the numbers gone down. Richard Hart made me mad. Okay, go away. But you'll be back if you actually want to do a transaction where people aren't breathing down your neck. You know it. You know it as well as I do. We all know it. You know it. I know it. The American people know it. Why is Bitcoin moving? Because big players use it to have liquidity available very fast if needed. Yes, yield is in Hex, tax and no fear. Absolutely. Rich Liberation, thanks for being here. July 8th is when Richard Hart SEC case goes before the judge for dismissal. And then obviously if it gets dismissed or not, they're going to go after this whole, writing to the blockchain is speech. If Trump is no hope, what is your hope? Jesus is my hope. You got to pay attention to my channel to know that. Weird argument. Yeah, no, I guess for those who have ears to hear. Get more nervous and closer we get to the election. Look what happened to steal the last election. Been saying since to get prepared and be ready just in case if election is stolen. Tough days ahead. Yeah, what I think about this is, they're registering people to vote who are illegals, right? There's a whole plan, right? The question is, are people so fed up that it's going to be a landslide? That's one option. Two, I think what's a way easier solution for the people on the left is to just take Trump out, right? Because there's no one as an alternative. Like if he's out, right? If he's dead, for example, who can carry the weight? I don't think there is somebody. So they basically win either way. So the question is, do you want to do all the work of rigging the election or do you just want to take the guy out? Well, that's the whole point of putting him in Rikers. But what they underestimate is the fact of the matter is they haven't taken the guns yet. Liberty. Cookie, blessings to you and your loved ones. Blessings from Germany. Ali O, loving your wisdom here. We 100% need to focus on the core coins and high quality projects. Well, and I think it's just very, very common sense. Follow the money. Who has the money? That's it. That's it. Who has the money? Well, look at the liquidity, right? Look at the liquidity on all these pairs of all these meme coins. Who has money? Basically nobody. Nobody that's creating coins has any money. Okay. So basically Richard Hart, right? $1.6 billion, probably $600,000 of DAI sitting there, 170,000 ETH. And there's a lot more backing that up. And there's a lot more whales. I mean, the people that are the real whales in this are paying attention. It's just not time. They've been through enough cycles to know. And folks, like if you're new to crypto, here's a mystery. Let me solve something for you. Richard Hart said it 1 billion times, and it's 100% true. When the top is in, you're going to have to wait at least 3.5 to 4 years. That's how it works. When the top is in, all the whales go away, and they wait until the next catalytic event, and that's post-halving, right where we are, the banana zone. What's going to be the catalyst for this one? Is it going to be the inflows of the Ethereum ETF? Maybe. Is it going to be the lowering in? Is it going to be the lowering of interest rates? Well, I think that could have a factor. Is it going to be wars? Is it going to be the use of nuclear weapons? What's it going to be? Folks, we're in like the most dangerous times. I think back to like, oh no, the Cuban Missile Crisis. I think we're at a way higher DEFCON rating now. But this thing, I think people underestimate the military industrial complex. I mean, dude, this whole business of war thing, I don't even know if Trump can handle it. I mean, it's a big job to try to quote unquote drain the swamp. That's why I'm a Texas independence guy. But then, I even think about this. Let's say Texas is independent. As long as there's an apparatus from a military industrial perspective, and it's pretty clear that they've got technologies that we don't know about, those are like, I mean, we may be in a whole new, Well, we are in a whole new world. It's obvious. So we'll see. But where do good people go? Where do good people go? Blessings to you. We need to act again under the vision that we paint our own money. Print. Yeah, we print our own money. Yeah. And how do we print our own money? Daniel's right. Through agreement. All fiat is an agreement. It's not backed by anything. So we're going to agree that Hex is money, or we're going to agree that this is money, or this is value. That's really what we're doing collectively when we write with our free speech to the blockchain. AT, what's up? ETH plus Coinbase Smart Wallet, Trump win, plus people moving away from memes towards high quality DeFi. Yeah. And then you think about what gets people's attention. It's the things that's why Hex is so interesting with T-shares and Trustless Yield, is that let's say we saw a really good run post ETF, we got the elections coming up and we see this massive run. I mean, I remember, multiple days in a row where we were up 36 to 40% on Hex in the last run. And it just kept going and going and going and going. Well, and that was kind of naturally with the market. And certainly, there were people behind the scenes protecting the price. But imagine just the rage pump, right? And think about all of these things. What if there are some solutions out there like, potential election? What if things, you make a good point with the Coinbase Smart Wallet. It's interesting, moving away from seed phrases, moving to gasless transactions, lowering the cost of those things. I mean, there's a lot here. I won so hard with the short on Hex, made a lot of money. Richard Hart is wrecked. Every resistance Hex makes short it. Okay. That's great. Glad you're here. Hey, Crypto Heartbeat. Hope you're good. I'm good. Thanks for being here. And Richard Hart, SEC win. That would be nice. I called it that Hex will not make a new all-time high this cycle. Well, you're the guy that also said you've been shorting Hex. So we'll see. And you know what? My hope isn't in Hex. I think I want to make it really clear. My hope is in that we actually have an alternative to the centralized system of CBDCs. And, there has to be one. And I don't see, outside of Cardano, I really do think that Charles represents a lot of the same tenets that Richard does, but I just don't think it has it's really more of a nerd chain, and it's difficult. To me, it doesn't have the potential marketing, and it doesn't have the same kind of charismatic community members. I mean, if you really think the uniqueness of this Richard Hart ecosystem is actually the people in the community, and I don't see that same thing in Cardano. I see a lot of scientific nerdy people, which is cool. We need that. But really, to me, Charles and Richard are really the two OGs that are still around. And I would bet on Richard way over that from the perspective of if things got really, really bad, which they're pretty much guaranteed to. And it's like people waking up. And I'll make a really good point here. I was in a board meeting at my kid's school, and this was right beginning of the pandemic, and I was concerned about the vaccine. I just had a sense that I wasn't supposed to take it. And a buddy of mine, a close friend of mine, who's a doctor, he's a surgeon. I said, I'm really worried about, this new messenger RNA, platform potentially affecting people's DNA. And he laughed and criticized me in front of everybody and made me feel like a fool. I remember that very, very well. And I never did it. I never got it. And I was just like, I just don't feel right about this. And not that I knew some sort of answer, but what did we find out? And I think about that and I go, you know what? Right now it seems foolish. Oh no, I'm shorting all this stuff. But you don't realize, when somebody takes all the air out of the room, you aren't thinking about Lambo, right? And it happens like so quickly. And you don't realize this is like, oh yeah, we're supposed to do this. I mean, the folks in the relatively new prime minister over in the UK is basically going, hey, we need to have the CBDC, and they're going to sell it to you as all these benefits. But then, just like everything, hey, we need 2 weeks to flatten the curve. It then gets taken advantage of by people who want to make money and be authoritarians. And what do you end up with? And the people wake up to that. The people that go along with it, they wake up to it and goes, hey, this isn't what we were sold. But then they're like, well, what do we do now? That's what we're preparing for. And if you don't see that and you think it's like, well, it's just short hex. It's not about hex. It's about having an alternative financial system where you have the freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of privacy, freedom to transact, period. And all I'm saying to you is probably what Richard would say if he was streaming. That's what we are doing. We are building together, not separately, not Richard Hart, all of us together who are serious-minded builders. We're building an alternative financial system. Because when this one clamps you down so much and you're like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to show my, vaccine card. I mean, they're already using this messenger RNA to do cancer vaccines. Oh, yeah, well, you don't want to have cancer, do you? Oh, man, well, why? You can't travel if you don't have this stuff. And no, you can't get the handout from the government. You can't buy this stuff or whatever it may be. And especially if the election in the United States does not have someone like Trump winning. Now, it's a catalyst for Texas independence, but what does that mean? It's like you have to have a way to transact. And I just imagine when you have these big catastrophes where communication systems go down, like, how do you communicate? Right? And there have been tools that have been used technologically so that people could do that. Hex Rockstar, what's up, man? Whales Only is one source who knows how that traditional market works. I haven't heard from him in a while. Thanks for being here, Time Traveler. Yeah, I'm tired of the meme coins. Well, it is. It's the time, right? Like I said before, there was an era that was Titan X, right? There was an era of Zen, right? They come and go. And, there's other people that are like, I'm out on Hex, so definitely need more leaders in the community like you, Heartbeat. Well, what's funny about it is the reason I even started my channel is because there weren't people. It's funny. There were only a handful of people that I thought were actually like sensible, reasonable people that like cared about the family. Well, come to find out, there's a lot of us, but they're not people that are putting themselves out there in front. And what I love, though, folks, do not ever forget this. When you go to these meetups, the Hex meetups and all these, some of the greatest people I've ever met, you are good people. We should be watching out for one another. That's what we should be doing. We should be watching out for one. I think part of our ethos needs to be we're actually concerned about others in addition to ourselves. I'm not saying you shouldn't care about your family and protect your family and want Lambo. That's fine. But just for a minute, think about somebody else in addition to yourself. And that's so perfect. And Daniel says, me. That's the difference. But that, you know what, folks, if you know about anything about community or the church or anything that has any value, when was the last time you were in some sort of social situation and somebody genuinely came up to you and they said, hey, how are you doing? And they meant it. And they actually listened to you. Do you know how rare that is? If you don't do that, if you're the person, when everyone gets you a chance to talk, you just talk about yourself. Hey, let me tell you a little bit more about me. Well, next time, shut up and actually listen. People are dying around you. People do not ever have anyone who will listen to them. And what I noticed in this Richard Hart community, it's a group of people that actually have some care and consideration, and they like to win together, right? They like the whole crypto, let's go up, but they're optimistic, but they're also caring. And I think that's the thing that, it's folks like Maddie, it's the folks like Kinetics and RG3, and whether you like these people or not, they invested in people. And I'll tell you, I think one of the reasons that Hex did so well is because a guy like RG3 understood that you win by helping other people win. That's how you win in this life. You care about people. People don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And somebody like that goes, you know what? I'm going to help you. Do you make all the right decisions all the time? No. But you know what? I don't want to deal with people who just want to destroy what other people create. It is easy to be a critic. It is very difficult to be a creator. Traders will lose in the long run. Mag is bigger than man. PX will fail if those 5555 stakes on Ethereum are not able to come to terms. PX, and you never know what Richard's got planned, by the way. I don't know what it is, but there's something there. That baked by real, is Bitcoin backed by real power needed to mine the BTC? A billionaire just can't be like a worker in construction. Yep. Love your metaphor with crypto tied to real value like a company. Michael Saylor buying BTC with MicroStrategies is exactly that. Yeah, exactly. And if you think about it, it really can't become the alternative financial system unless it's tied to the financial system, right? It sits out there as speculation and a casino, and it's called gambling. But as it matures, it's tied to real things. But what you're doing is you're foregoing your short-term benefits for a collective long-term growth. But you're constantly doing that. And then you think about it. Let's say you had the rock token with concrete. There might be other concrete people go, hey, what if we shared our revenue with that? And we set aside a certain amount of money every quarter and we bought the rock token. Well, the rock token would suck in so much more value and we'd all win together, right? This multiplication factor. And that's why we could get into fair launches and all sorts of things. That's why nobody wants anybody to be independent. What will happen to the Amish? They'll continue to move barns. I think you don't understand that all the meme coins are liquidity bonded to Pulse chains. So the Richard Hart dumps ETH and rotates meme coins, pump, and even harder on Pulse. Lack of understanding. No, I understand about liquidity bonding, and I think that you're right. But at the end of the day, you have to have Pulse pairs, right? You have to be actually liquidity bonded with them of any substance. I agree. That's the beauty of having Pulse so low and bonding with it at the bottom. I don't disagree with you, right? So I think the rising tide is going to lift all those things, but that's going to bring more attention. Do the meme coins have trustless yield? Probably not. And so the question is, will people, there needs to be a variety of things. I'm not saying that meme coins shouldn't exist. I think anything possible to get people in. But I think it's important to remind them that what this actually represents is bigger than just a gain of a singular coin. But I love liquidity bonding. With Texan and Ophir, that we're banking on it. But you know what? You can't just rely on the liquidity bonding, right? Because then the people that are the holders are just going to dump into it because they don't have confidence and don't have leadership and it doesn't have any utility. And so, let's mature. Let's mature in this community. That's what I hope to see. I haven't checked yet. Wow. Richard Hart did the same thing for Hex 4 years ago. Heck is liquidity bonded to ETH and Bitcoin. Yeah, exactly. I thought you were out on Richard Hart. So Hex's bigger meme coin has loads more bag holders and 36,000 users that are waiting to dump. Well, think about the whole component of trustless yield. What was the point of staking? The point of staking was, you're relieving sell pressure. Think the market's so down, right? That's the cycles, right? You relied on it. And now you have to sell it at the bottom to be able to survive. It's not I don't think that the people that are in Hex are just looking to dump. I think they're required to dump because they don't have another means of revenue. That's why these things are cycles. They literally rise and fall together with that momentum. Jesus is on the ballot. He always is, and you always have a choice to make. All right, there you go. Well said. It's a long play with the ETH buy. Hex is only a meme to those who fail to understand it. There you go. That's a really good way of putting it. The submarine is in Cuba. Just saying. Is what common in the USA? To talk about Jesus? No, that's a kind of a global phenomenon. Have a great evening. Absolutely, folks. We're going to wrap this thing up. I'm in France after the recent European elections. We have unplanned new elections in a few weeks, expecting a landslide for the Nationalist Party to bring order. Well, I think there are some adults potentially in the room. Economy's getting bad with huge debt. Getting bad, yeah. Crypto is a reassuring plan B, despite hyper volatility. There you go. When CBDCs come, there will be more tracking of transactions. Absolutely. Way to stand up to the pressures and not take the mRNA shot, Matt. Also resisting while being threatened to lose my job at the Army. Well, at least I wasn't in a situation like that. Absolutely. There were people that just had to travel and do all those things, and they ended up doing it. I think a lot of people regret it. Jay Pond, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. And Francis Paul, we got through the chat. Is Brandon doing good? Have not seen him lately. I don't know. Why don't you reach out to him, encourage him, say a good word to the gentle ginger giant genius. Folks, thanks for joining the Pulse today. My name is Matt, and do not let your heart be troubled. There is hope. We are together building the alternative financial system. Take care of yourself and do not mess with Texas.